Excuse me while I rant a little bit. What I want to rant about is that men are really misunderstood in our society, in our culture, in our marriages. I'm a marriage coach, so that's what I focus on today. But I want to start with a story. I was just heading home a couple of nights ago in an airplane. And on the way to my destination, I sat next to females and we had had these great chats. And on the way back, my first plane, another woman, great chat. The second plane coming home, on my way home, I was sitting next to a guy. He had his arms crossed, and I made a little comment, I'm a chatty person, and I said, so heading home, and he's like, yep, that was it. I started to have a lot of judgment about this man sitting next to me. I started to think, he doesn't want to talk. He's not interested in connection. He started to think about maybe his life. He's probably kind of lonely. And I started to have these major judgments about this guy. I study the male brain for a living. That is my job. And I love men. I love man, my husband, but I just in general, I love men. I think they are good. I think they are very misunderstood. And I think that they're misunderstood by themselves and by our culture and by their wives. So I started to think, well, okay, let's look at the scenario here. Here I am sitting next to him. I want to have connection with him for my benefit. Essentially, I'm using this man for getting my own needs met, which is kind of a normal thing we do in life, right? But there he was sitting, having doing nothing wrong, and I was having all these judgments about him. Does he need connection? Is it important for him to have connection? I think yes, but in a different way, not in the way that I wanted to have connection with him. Bam, another judgment that I'm better than him, that women are better than men because we look for connection, that we want to talk a lot. This got me thinking about, well, what would this man's needs be who's sitting next to me on an airplane? And I know just from my work as a marriage coach and my coaching with men and my study of men, which it will always be a study because, hello, I don't have a male brain and I have biases, that he would really do well to be respected by me and to be admired by me in some instances, and also for him to be able to teach me something perhaps and to be able to show some expertise. So I started thinking about, okay, well, how could I do that? How could I give him something that he might need? And I started to think, well, maybe I could ask him a question, get him to start talking about his work. Or maybe I could ask him about a hobby or something, but still getting my needs met because my needs are for connection. So he ended up having his eyes closed. So I went back to actually writing in my journal about this experience and thinking about doing this Facebook Live. And then later down the road, I realized that this man was actually connected to the wife and child in the next aisle over. Bam, another judgment about him. A judgment that he had been closed, his eyes were closed the whole time, and there his wife was stewing about and dealing with this unhappy child. And then I noticed, she would drop a few things and he would pick it up and put it back on her tray, but they weren't really having a lot of conversation. This isn't a judgment about their marriage at all. I promise I don't go around psychoanalyzing everybody's marriages, much to other people's surprises, but that's a whole other tangent. Then I noticed he offered to help. He offered 3 times to help, and each single time he was denied. And I think that's what ends up happening is men really want to be of service. That is it's such a good thing that men want to actually give and be of service and help. And we have a very clear picture of what is the right way to help or what the right way for them to do it. And they offer, they get shut down. And guess what happens? No big surprise. They shut down for good. Now, I'm a hardcore feminist here. So you might be surprised that even though I am very strong and very passionate about women's rights and women's needs and women's empowerment and all that stuff, I'm also really passionate about men and how they are completely misunderstood by our culture. So here, I want to talk a little bit more. I've touched briefly, but I want to touch a little bit more on where I think they're misunderstood. So again, that men want to be of service, and that women, and especially in marriage, is we don't give them the opportunity to win. We don't give them an opportunity to serve with us. We either say, no, I'm good, I don't need help, or we have a very particular way that we want them to help, and they end up failing. Here's another thing you need to know about men. Men feel like they're in this constant like job interview, and they're prone to feeling like they're failing. Men sometimes will not admit that to me, but you can see it over and over again, and they just get crushed and crushed by women around them who misunderstood their motivations for wanting to help. Sometimes people talk about this like mansplaining, I think the term is, like when men kind of take over a conversation and explain, they're trying to be the experts. Okay, like maybe they're going a little too far, but can we just acknowledge that men want to provide a service? They actually want to be helpful and contribute to our well-being, and actually are very concerned about women's happiness. Look, I'm talking about good men here. There are men out there who are so up in their false idea of masculinity. Again, can we look at this compassionately? Can we look at this and see that they're actually, they've been trained by this since childhood to have this sense of masculinity? Don't be a pussy is what they hear on the playground. They're touched way less by their parents starting at age 4. So like, even when I look at men who are like just chauvinistic pigs, really, I see hurt, and I see a culture who has consistently taught them the wrong way to show up in the world as a man. So that men, a misunderstanding is that men want to like be the expert all the time and take over. I think that's really misinterpreted from their true desire to be of service and to help. I think men also really take their role as providers very seriously. A really common way that they're misinterpreted in this area is that they work too much. Well, if you look at, men are really good at coming to the realization of what is the most important thing. And so they look at their wives who say, come home, be home with me more. And they look at their role as providers and protectors there's like a biological urge. And they think, okay, I know my wife wants to be home with me more, but what she really wants, maybe what she's not really saying, but what she really wants and what will really make her happy is if I provide for her. So this is just like a really small, like I didn't even script this or anything. This is just kind of flowing out of me. Men are good. And, when I say I study the male brain to men, they kind of look at me like I'm crazy and just say, well, like, we're not that hard. Like, we're actually pretty simple, and there's nothing really to figure out. But I think, when we are in our own heads, we think that everyone else in the world thinks this way. And so when I tell men, for example, that I ask women to use the 3 A's of communication with men: appreciate, abbreviate, and articulate, they look at me like I'm crazy, like, yeah, of course, like that is the best way to communicate. But in fact, we don't do that. As women will go to men and be like, tell the whole backstory and how the feelings and blah, blah, blah. And guess what happens? It triggers them because they start to feel like a failure. They haven't passed the job interview, so to speak. So what I would really encourage you, what my whole purpose here is just to say, like, assume good intentions of your husband. And men who are listening, like, good for you if you've gotten to the end, is that I think you're misunderstood. I think you're misunderstood by the world, and I think you're misunderstood by culture, and I think you're misunderstood by your wife. And I am on your back. Like, I have your back. I'm on your team. And even though I am like, you can be a feminist and you can be like a maleist. Is there even a word for like women who, like, there isn't even a word, right? Because there's so much more than meets the eye. We can go on women's marches, and we can also at the same time love men and think they're fantastic. So I hope my takeaway for you is that there's more than meets the eye, and that we've been totally lied to by our culture about motivations that men have. And I hope that you, like, this is, some pages from married couples. So I hope that you kind of dig a little deeper in your marriage, and you see some like really good intentions of your husband, and call him your hero. Just do it. I know it sounds cheesy. Call him your hero. Tell him that you believe in him. Show respect as much as you possibly can. Respect isn't just about submissiveness at all. At all. It's about truly like admiring your husband for what he brings to the table, the qualities that you see in him that are good, you know, the actions that he does for you and for your family every day, the way he shows up at work, the accomplishments he's had in life, you know, show him that, tell him that you're like proud to be like next to him on this journey. And if you really want to take your marriage to that like level, I know it's very hard to do alone. And I'm a marriage coach, but I have had so much help in getting to this point where I wake up in the morning and I feel like I am so much on the same team with my husband. If you want to figure out, if you want support, if you want to know how to do this, if you want to just master your marriage this year, I have created a group, kind of a group one-on-one mishmash program that is for couples who are in that like average, you know, kind of like we're doing okay space. And there's so much more. Like the level of connection and intimacy that you can get is unreal and so intense and so incredible. I am not so like in the clouds to say that I've gotten there, because I want to participate in a group like this. You get one-on-one coaching from me. You get support for the female brain, the male brain. You get to hear from other couples who are in the real world like you, who are not throwing the D word around, but who are, you know, ready for the next step. You know, they're past kind of putting out fires and solving the little problems, and you really want to get to that point where you ditch your patterns that you're in and you feel so insanely on the same team and so insanely supported by your spouse. So you feel wanted. You know, if men are listening, you want to feel wanted, you feel desired, you feel like your wife has your back. Women, you feel like you're on the same team. We want different things out of marriage, and that's totally fine. So I'm going to pop a link. You can just email me if you want, if you feel like you want to get more information before we chat. But the best thing you can do, just hop on a free call with me, 15 minutes, no pressure at all. I'll tell you all the details, and I'll be able to kind of tailor make what you want from the experience, and I'll listen, because this is new, this is revolutionary, this is the beta group. You get to be in like the elite 10% of marriages out there. So I hope that I get to meet you. I hope that I get to meet your husband, and I'll talk to you guys soon. Later. Bye.